This session is called the Digital Debate, and that's what it's intended to be. So I will be facilitating a session between the four of us here on the stage to try to bring out some of the issues that we think will contribute to the kind of vision that we've just heard about. So how we're going to start this is I'm going to ask each of the panel members in turn, starting from the far side, if I may, to introduce themselves. Just take a minute, please be very short, just to say something about who you are and your background, bring out one or two of the issues that you think are important, and we'll take it from there. So Michael, may I begin with you?
So, how do you do? Thank you very much. I'm Michael Fourman. I'm here because I chaired a previous group at the Royal Society of Edinburgh that produced a Digital Scotland report on infrastructure a few years ago now, and we're working on another report at the moment on digital participation. So that's why I'm here. Now, in terms of points, I already have filled a piece of paper just on things I might say, so I can't say all of those. I enjoyed the Minister's presentation very much, and it's clear that a lot of discussion has been going on around Scotland as it is around the UK and around the world on what happens after you get the infrastructure there. I had down business, education, culture as things that we should think about. I think in business we need to be very aware that most small businesses still aren't making good use of the web. That's something I think is very important. I think in education we need to understand that it's not just digital literacy is no longer word processors and spreadsheets. It's discovery of information, creation of information, communication. It's really using things in new ways to do new things. But overall, I thought, how can I focus this? So our first report looked at the infrastructure and the fact that in Scotland, 20–30% was beyond the reach of the market. But when we looked closely, we found that 20–30% consisted, or most of it, consisted of small communities that when you got to the community were more densely populated than the corresponding communities in England. Now, I think when we're looking at these points of how we get everyone to participate, we need to look beyond the 85%, which is where the mass market reaches, to the long tail. And we have to understand that lots of people see no point in going online, and we have to understand what will excite them and get them online, and similarly lots of businesses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. David?
Thank you. My name's David Smith. I'm with Scottish Enterprise. I head up what we call our technology, engineering and creative industries team. My interest and my focus is very much on growth. So how can we use both the existing infrastructure and technology, but the investment that's going into infrastructure and capability to drive more growth for the economy. We do that in a number of ways by working with ambitious companies with a range of support mechanisms to help them to harness, to utilise digital technologies to reach overseas markets, to develop new ways of engaging with customers. So as you can tell, we've got a particular interest on how we can exploit digital technology to support the international growth, the export growth for Scottish companies. However, the other interest that we have is very much on the collaboration theme, because as I'm sure will be a theme throughout the conference today, I really do believe that we stand the maximum chance of benefiting from digital economies, digital technology, and from building capabilities, building solutions which will win in global markets by collaborating in the most effective way possible. How do we go about doing that, working with industry to support and promote collaboration? Well, we work very closely with the industry leadership groups that we've helped to support establish here in Scotland, particularly the Technology Advisory Group, which is a range of representatives from industry with interests and knowledge in a number of the opportunity areas that we have for Scotland. So, for example, in smart healthcare, which I know George will touch on later, where we have some existing and further considerable potential to grow solutions and develop solutions. In areas like sensor technology, where we already have close to £2.5 billion worth of turnover from companies in Scotland here engaged in sensor technology and sensor systems, and we're working with that community to increase innovation, to grow a number of different applications where we can use and apply that sensor technology, and in areas like smart mobility, which the Deputy First Minister touched on, where we have some nascent and growing strengths in that area, and to build on the opportunity we have around things like the Future Cities Demonstrator in Glasgow. So for me, it's all very much a message around collaboration and how we can collaborate more effectively and better understand, particularly from industry, where we see new and emerging opportunities and get behind those and support them.
Thank you very much. It's quite interesting that already we hear words such as participation and collaboration coming up as potential themes for this conference. Helen, may I invite you to say a few words?
Yes. Maybe whatever jargon bingo, I can't say participation or collaboration now. So I'm Helen Milner. I'm the Chief Executive of Online Centres Foundation. Our main role is to lead the UK Online Centres network, and I probably want to start by apologising for the Whitehall wonks who called us UK Online Centres and then only gave us money for England. So I'm here very much in the spirit of partnership to make sure that we can help with the digital participation agenda in Scotland too. As Nicholas Sturgeon said, there's no point in having world-class infrastructure if you don't actually digitally include the people who need to use it. So my role is very much about generating that shared vision of an inclusive digital nation. So we lead 5,000 UK online centres, and in the last 3 years we've helped 1.1 million people to become digitally literate. So we've done that by creating world-class products, services and support in an integrated way, but also about focusing on the hyper-local as well as the big scale. And by learning as we go, so iterating and learning. Quite often I'm in this kind of debate where the evidence for the investment in infrastructure seems to have been made. It seems to have been won somehow, somewhere. But the argument around investment in the skills and capability isn't quite so clear. So I make sure that when we do our work, that I can then take it back to hard facts. So I personally believe it is a good thing to help people to get jobs, to work their way out of poverty, to get skills, to get self-esteem and to build confidence. But I also know that it's a good thing that an investment in England of £30 million saved £158 million just through channel shift. And it saved another £640 million just by 80,000 of those 1 million people getting work. So if you don't buy the argument that people should be more confident and have greater self-esteem and be happier and healthier and more connected to their family and their communities, then listen to the numbers. The numbers do stack up. And therefore I think that to have a properly inclusive digital participation agenda in Scotland, you need investment.
Thank you very much. Thank you. George.
Great. Some of you may wonder why a GP of 23 years is sitting up here. I'm Medical Director for NHS 24. I'm also Medical Director for the Scottish Ambulance Service and head up the Scottish Centre for Telehealth and Telecare. One of the other things I do is I'm President of ETEL, which is the oldest e-health organisation in Europe. And I'm about delivering health and care services to the citizens of Scotland using every digital channel to support the most valuable resource that we have in health and care, which is face-to-face contact. Everyone thinks that when we use technology, it's about replacing people with things. It's far from the case. We have to be very innovative in how we deliver health and care for the future because, in fact, our service model is not sustainable. We will not be able to cope with the ageing population, the rise in long-term conditions, the societal challenges that are out there on a day-to-day basis without radically redesigning how we deliver services. And the digital agenda is absolutely vital and is going to be key to the survival of health and care services across Scotland. Because we need to empower our citizens not simply to actively participate in health and care services, but actually to deliver those services and for the formal agencies to support that delivery. and therefore having digital access into every home to provide information and advice, support and actual service provision is key and fundamental to the strategy that we are delivering from now through to 2020 with the support of Scottish Government and others. So I'm working across the sectors of government, particularly with colleagues in the Digital Directorate, so that we get the best bang for our buck. Because I just want to share one thought with you, which could be very liberating if we recognise it. At the moment in health, we spend almost £12 billion a year. And most people I speak to regard that as a cost. Let's stop regarding it as a cost and regard it as an investment. Because if we target a proportion of that £12 billion intelligently, we can actually work collaboratively together, grow the economy, create economic advantage for Scotland, move Scotland forward from the position it is as a leader to the world-class leader in digital services delivery for the future. So I challenge you all to hold that point in your brain and actually work through what it could mean for you, your company, and your sector to work in a collaborative partnership with the public sector, particularly the health and care industry in Scotland, for the common good of our citizens and the country as a whole.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I think already we've seen a thread go all the way through this, and whatever words we use, participation, collaboration, and so on, then what we're seeing here is the need for engagement across ranges of capabilities. And that's very interesting to see. The other point that I may highlight from what George has just said is that technology being used to support face-to-face interaction rather than replacing it, which is a completely different model for technological development that would be perhaps worthwhile exploring here in Scotland. Anybody object of any of the four panellists or take issue with one of your colleagues' statements? That's always a good start. Or do you all completely agree? Anybody in the audience as well disagree or agree? Michael?
One point. We've already done some work on our thing, and we went down to Dumfries and we spoke to some small businesses, and I had the idea that businesses can expand and they can all access international markets. And someone said, not me. My business, a specialist little shop in an out-of-the-way place, their business was providing the kind of specialist shop that we have all over in Edinburgh, and providing products that were actually made in Germany. He couldn't sell these to the world because he was already buying them from the world. What he needed was a completely different approach so that people who were visiting who didn't know he existed would find him. So I think we need to think very carefully about, it's not a one-size-fits-all, even for the businesses. We've got to say, what is that business and how can digital help it? And I think that's much harder.
And who might be doing that? Who's going to do that for that business? Would that be David in Scottish Enterprise, for example?
I don't think David in Scottish Enterprise can do it himself, but I think Scottish Enterprise might work with the community to make sure that there's the right kind of training. And the other thing we found was that people get fleeced by people providing services, and so they get very wary about getting online because they've been once bitten, twice shy. So some sort of standards of these people are going to give you a reasonable thing for a reasonable price would be very good. We need to develop a whole culture of this is what can be done, this is what you expect to pay for it.
So David, might you rise to the challenge and say how could Scottish Enterprise help while stopping anyone getting fleeced, preferably?
Well, I think it's about, again, working in partnership, working in collaboration with other parts of the public sector and the private sector. So it's particularly in the instance that you've just raised there, Michael, it's about our work with Business Gateway, with local authorities, also with the supply side, the private sector, to try to ensure that there's, through a range of mechanisms, whether through it's online or whether it's through working to help the supply side sector, enhance the advice and level of knowledge and communication they're imparting to businesses across Scotland to really just overall raise levels of education and understanding amongst the 340,000 business leaders that we have across Scotland. It's really about trying to increase that level of understanding and awareness. And I think with that comes the greater confidence to invest in the right kind of
George?
technology, the right kind of solution which is suitable for the business.
Yeah, can I support that? The thing that I find is there's a huge amount of urban myths out there and misunderstanding. And one of the greatest examples we've got is the use of social media in the public sector, where in fact social media is banned in every NHS organisation in Scotland on the bounds that it could compromise patient confidentiality, which is complete nonsense. If somebody wishes to breach confidentiality about a patient, they will do it. Most patient confidentiality has been actually breached with one of these things, not by one of these things. He throws his glasses in the ground.
These things.
It's an age thing. But it's because of ignorance and lack of understanding of the technology, and what does an organisation do? It bans it. So we need to sort that out. But I'd like to underpin what the Cabinet Secretary said. It's about push and pull. We can do so much about making the digital environment more accessible, be it through fibre, be it through devices, etc. But in fact, the most powerful way to radically change is the pull. It's for the consumers, the citizens, the small businesses to actually demand and let the market do what the market actually is very good at doing. But for that to happen, people need to feel empowered. They need to get that education and training. Be it Joe Public in the street who is caring for their mother with dementia, be it through a small business, or actually a medium or large-sized business, who in fact think that digital is all about IT, which is a fundamental mistake that a lot of people make, because then you're wearing blinkers. So I was interested in what Helen was saying about how you create that pool to actually move this onto the next level.
So one or two examples at this point, Helen, might be quite pertinent.
Can I first say that I think sometimes another urban myth is that a business person and a person are different. Obviously, if you need to create your PayPal account to start selling things, that's a different skill to needing to communicate via Skype with your grandchildren. But people are people. You know, technology is there to help people communicate with each other, help people build businesses, help us together create stronger communities. And that if we start saying that it's different and we've got to put people in boxes, then actually we ignore the fact that people are just people. So how do we create some of that pull? I would say in Dumfries, I think, focus on the kind of work that David can do, but also focus on the community. That community looking after itself and being motivated and inspired to become a digital community and to help people who live amongst them, be they businesses or individuals. On a large-scale basis, we run campaigns. So we do that by creating well-orchestrated campaigns like Get Online Week, that's in October, and we provide packs and slogans and messaging that we put in the hands in those local communities. We're just finishing a campaign that we've done called Baking with Friends. So Get Online Week would be, use the internet, there's a great wide world out there, don't be scared, today's the day. Baking with Friends is, would you like to make a brownie and a cup in a microwave? So Baking with Friends is that the campaign is around baking and coming together in that community to bake together. But once you're there, you get a voucher with other people, you go online shopping to buy your ingredients. So immediately, this is not just about brownies and microwaves, it's actually about online shopping, but doing it with your peers. You then are downloading recipes that you're printing off and you're sharing, and then you're baking. Because we're obviously a paternalistic educator, we slip a little bit of maths in there as well to make sure we've got a bit of like weights and measures and conversions. But Baking with Friends is an example of where you can give people the tools to come together around something that they're motivated in. But then you can also give them the tools to make that a learning experience and to that's part of your digital participation agenda.
This is a very interesting point, and that is reasons for people to do things together, and the motivational part of that. Being in education, I know that you have to motivate people to learn, and you have to have reasons to work and to make effort and to learn. And baking with friends is a good one, and there can be many others at different levels of scale. So I'm glad that you brought those points out.
I mean, another example I would give would be within the tourism sector, where we've worked with the industry, the Scottish Tourism Alliance, with Visit Scotland, to better understand the needs of companies across the sector. And whilst a lot of the tourism businesses might not be exporters per se, they have been able to benefit from things like our Shine Online guide, which gives very practical advice about how tourism businesses can use the internet technology to better position their offering and put together solutions, give better benefits to customers, and therefore increase their revenue and their growth. So.
It's quite interesting that in the discussion so far, there's been a real shift from IT to digital to the social context and the reasons for people to do things, whether it's a business or single person working from home or whatever. That how do we reach people and develop that capability to engage? And that's the pool that George was talking about as well. At this point, can I take any questions from the audience? Yes, there's a gentleman just here, if we can get a microphone to you so that we can hear the question. Can you say who you are, please? And
my name's Ian Harford. I've got experience in e-learning in the UK and in Manchester.
Yes.
And the area that I'd just like to raise is I think it's important when you're talking about digital developments is that organisations need to change as well.
Okay.
If you're talking about learning, you're talking about education, if you're talking about health, this requires organisational change, and that's really quite a tough challenge, which I don't think has been mentioned enough to date.
Right, thank you. So as a question, how are we going to effect organisational change, briefly, in any of the areas that you represent?
Can I just say that I think it's a really good point. I work with lots of social housing providers, and I always say to them, the question isn't will you be a digital organisation, is when will you be a digital organisation and how quickly can you get there? So it's about making sure you paint the picture of what a digital organisation looks like, and then make sure that they understand that they can't choose to be one or not, they've just got to work out their plan. George?
Yeah, it's interesting. The Scottish Centre for Telehealth, which is a national resource to help the grassroots members of the NHS in Scotland embrace the digital agenda and use technology where it's safe, effective, and the most important thing for us is appropriate to do so. We've got 30 members of the team. 3 of them are technical specialists. 27 actually are changed in service redesign and organisational change management. Because you're absolutely right. Whatever it is, it's never to do with the technology, although we do have issues with connectivity, don't get me wrong. It is actually about people. And that is where you need to take your investment, because if you get that bit wrong, it won't go any further. And certainly in health, we have got the doctors are the worst, and I say that as one, because they are absolutely skilled at shroud waving when they don't want to do something. And again, it goes back, they don't want to do something because they don't understand it. It's not that they don't want to do it. So you have to take people on a journey, and you ignore that at your peril. It is fundamentally true.
So maybe just one point, I'd like to add a point to that, and that is that much of the technology failures in organisations is because we have not prototyped the new work patterns that technology brings with it. So while we develop technologies and the social patterning, we must develop the new work routines and how people relate to one another and prototype those as well, which is another new challenge for us, I think. But the point has been completely taken. Any other questions from the audience? We have just a few minutes left. Do I see anybody want to put a question?
In the dark.
Oh yes, gentleman in the corner.
Professor Bill Buchanan from Edinburgh University. George, I think everything you said was absolutely spot on. And obviously there's initiatives like Dallas Living Up, which are looking at new ecosystems for healthcare. I think it's very interesting you say that there should be pull from consumers. I wonder also what you think the push is likely to be, because there's push from the UK government and there's also push from the Scottish government just now in the redesign of healthcare. I just wonder what your vision is for the push and the pull.
Bishop Bull.
I'll say a very small bit, and I
Michael.
value the enterprise organisation's view on it. The thing that really saddens me at the moment is that the public sector, and it's not simply the healthcare sector, the public sector regard industry with distrust. It is still a bit of an us and them, and making a profit is a dirty business if you're in the health service. But the only way we will move things forward is actually through collaboration and partnership working, and that is partnership with industry. And still we are hidebound by old-fashioned procurement regulations. But in fact, Scottish Government are moving into the pre-commercial procurement agenda, and we're working with our enterprise organisations to look at new ways of procuring, because at the moment I exclude small and medium-sized enterprises at the first hurdle in any large-scale procurement within the public sector, in particular in health. That is an obscenity when I'm investing billions of Scottish and UK funding to procure services that we can't actually invest in our own infrastructure and our own organisations. That needs to change, and it needs to change now, not in 5 years' time, or we'll miss the opportunities. We've got Scottish companies who are doing most of their business south of the border and in Europe and other countries around the world, and they cannot access the public sector in Scotland to sell their products. Why on earth are we sitting here satisfied with that situation? It is fundamentally wrong.
David?
I would disagree.
David?
I would disagree with George only on one point, mainly. I don't think profit is a dirty word. I think it's a great word, actually. So it's a massive focus for us, and I know for colleagues across the Scottish Government, because it's central to economic growth. So we do passionately believe in doing all that we can to encourage growth and support growth. But to the point about what more are we doing on the push side, well, things like bringing together industry and academia around digital healthcare innovation partnership, the work of the newly launched Digital Health Innovation Centre is all about trying to encourage industry and academia to come together to develop even more appropriate, impactful solutions to address some of the challenges that we face going forward around the provision of healthcare, and to hopefully provide new and exciting solutions for global markets. And to George's point, we have been doing some early work, early pilots on how best to use and build our understanding around pre-commercial procurement. And I think that's going to be very important, a big focus and a central point of what we do, not only within the digital healthcare agenda, but across a number of different areas of opportunity we have here in Scotland. We've got to encourage the use of those kind of measures and figure out how we can make them work even more effectively for us.
So underlying all of this, and it came up in some earlier discussions, is procurement, and not only pre-commercial but agile procurement, and for everything to work. Michael, could we have just one or two closing remarks?
Well, just this idea of new and exciting solutions. That's great. I mean, I come from academia. I love it. Getting that data out there and producing new and exciting things to do with it is all stuff we should be doing. But in terms of the majority of companies, and I think it's true to say the majority of companies by count, not necessarily by volume, in Scotland are not effectively using the internet. What they need is not new and imaginative solutions. They need to understand how things we know how to do that are simple can actually help them in their businesses. It's rather like the baker brownie. We don't need anything new for these people. We need to show them how things we know how to do easily and we think are just straightforward, help them do something that they want to do. And I think the idea we've got to think and have a new idea in order to help someone is wrong in most cases. That we should do those as well.
Right. I think that is, I'll just leave that with a ... in action point for the rest of us in the other debates. David, would you like to...
I don't think it's one or the other, it's both. I mean,
okay.
What we were talking about is extremely important, but what you also raised there, Michael, is also vitally important. There's an estimated 3.7 billion worth of GVA that we could seize right now in the Scottish economy based on an e-skills report if we can work collectively together back to this collaboration theme to work in partnership to help particularly the private sector fully seize and utilise the benefits of digital technologies today. So going forward there's an even bigger prize, I would argue.
So I think we have to do everything. I think that's the challenge. We have to do everything. Okay, I'd like to close here and thank you very much, Michael and David and Helen and George, for your participation, and to the audience for your questions. Thank you very much.